Hey guys, this is this month's ReCast. We're going to go back into the vault to talk to our pal Phra Pandit on this episode titled Amulets, Talismans, Relics, and Faith from Season 3. This is episode 61. The burning question I had behind this episode was, if seemingly every third temple claims to have a piece of Buddha, what exactly happened to the poor guy when he died? So I sat down with Phra Pandit to talk about the history behind Buddhist relics and what Buddhist says about them, as well as their link to Sri Lanka. I think there's a story about a wooden mannequin that came to life in there somewhere as well. A lot of magical talk. Anyway, interesting episode, and I always like going back into the vault to talk to Phra Pandit and remember how many really interesting, cool things that we've talked about that give us some good insight into Thailand and Thai culture. So here we go. Hope you enjoy. On this episode, we chat with our friend Phra Pandit about relics, amulets, and the power of faith.
So, if you've ever wondered why people pay so much for some amulets and not for others, you'll love this episode of the Bangkok Podcast.
Sawadee krap, you be jammin' to the Bangkok Podcast. My name is Greg Jorgensen, a Canadian who came to Thailand looking for love in all the wrong places and ended up finding a glove and a pair of shoelaces, neither of which I know how to say in Thai.
And I'm Ed Knuth, an American who came to Thailand on a one-year teaching contract 18 years ago, fell in love with the stuffed animals that 45-year-old Thai women keep on their desks in the office, and I never left.
That's a little bit strange.
Before we start, a huge thanks to all of our patrons who support the show. For more info on how you can become a patron, just head to the support page on BangkokPodcast.com.
We do love our patrons. All right, well, let's get right into it. On this episode, we are happy to welcome back one of our favorite guests after a long hiatus, our venerable friend Phra Pandit, who has been a monk in Thailand for the past 20-odd years. I sat down with Phra Pandit at his temple a few weeks back to get an answer to a burning question I've had for years, which is there's seemingly a Buddha relic at every second temple you visit, whether it's hair or tooth or finger bone or something like that. And there are thousands of temples around the world, which begs the question, what incarnation happened to the Buddha's body when he died? So Phra Pandit graciously answered my questions and many more as we got to talking about talismans, amulets, and if believing something is true is as good as it actually being true. So here is my really, really cool conversation with Phra Pandit.
This is the Sima Hall, which is a consecrated hall. So every temple, to be a proper monastery, has to have an officially sanctified ordination hall, which may not be the biggest hall on the site.
Okay, well, we are here, as you may have guessed, sitting with our old friend Phra Pandit, longtime friend of the Bangkok Podcast. Welcome to the show again, sir. It's good to have you back.
Yes.
The typical response is good to be back, but I know you too well for that. And it's funny because we were walking around your monastery looking for a place to do this interview, and we walked into this magnificent ordination hall, giant Buddha, the ones you've seen, the beautiful paintings on the wall, the very nicely decorated roof, and we just moved a velvet curtain, velvet rope aside and walked right behind the main Buddha image. So we're currently sitting on the floor behind the main Buddha image while people meditate and pray in front, which is the most interesting spot that I've ever done an interview. So,
And this image, in fact, may not look it, but is gold. Gold plating, but the plating is like 0.5 centimeter thick. So it's just over $1 million worth of gold.
wow.
Has been plated over the original Buddha image. And that also is why we have big steel bars on all the windows.
Yes, they are pretty formidable.
Once the gold was put onto the image, we had to defend the place from thieves.
I bet, yeah. Well, I'm going to take a photo from our vantage point and post it on our website for this particular episode, so you can check it out. But it's a pretty neat place to sit down and do an interview. And one of the things I wanted to talk about is relics and amulets. And one of the things that I've always wondered about in my years in Thailand as I've gone from temple to temple and various trips and school field trips and things like this is there always seems to be a Buddha relic. There's a piece of his tooth, or there's a bit of hair, or there's a bone or something like that. And I mean, it's not just in Thailand. This is in every Buddhist temple, not every, but many Buddhist temple around the world.
And Christians will have a little fragment from the original cross. Fragment of wood,
Well, I've got my own problems with that, but let's stick to Buddhism today. But I mean, I don't want to put it too indelicately, but what the hell happened after Buddha died? Do all these temples really claim to have a piece of his body? Or is it a metaphor? What's going on?
Difficult to say. So far as I can tell, one of the original places where this really started to magnify or become a real big thing was in Sri Lanka. And there they had the original Buddha's tooth. And the Emperor of China found out about it. And because the Emperor of China is the Emperor of the world, he sent an emissary over to Sri Lanka to pick up his tooth, because everything belongs to the Emperor of China. And far from the Sri Lankans laughing him out of existence and telling them to get on their bikes, the Sri Lankans gave them not only one, but 2 teeth. And it seems to be from that point on that Buddha relics have been multiplying exponentially. Wherever there's a desire or an urge, they seem to multiply up. There was a temple in Bangkok called Wat Yanawa. And some years ago, they had a Buddha relic exhibition. And it brought in a lot of people. It was actually quite nice. I took several people there. Quite tastefully done, lots of jade balls and crystal statues and things. But they had lots and lots of little jars of little beads and things. And it said, this is the blood of the Buddha, and this is the spleen, and this is the different part of the body. And then the group that had brought all these relics to Wat Yanawa to display set up their own place on Rama 3 called the Relic Museum, which I believe shut recently, but was also quite nice to visit. And you would think that all the relics would be moved from the original Wat Yanawa over to the new museum, but mysteriously over the night, it seemed that all the relics doubled in volume, and the relic guys opened up their museum on Rama 3 and still left a full quota of relics in Wat Yanawa. So it would have to make one suspicious.
So are you saying that this is sort of a opportunistic grab at making adding a little bit of prestige or polish to a particular temple or place of worship?
Yes, it would. If you have a particularly sought after or famous relic, then yes, people will come and pay their respects to that relic.
Okay.
Originally, the Buddha, this might surprise some people, but he didn't allow veneration or worship. For example, he wouldn't allow images of himself to be made. But he did allow the veneration of 4 things. One of them is relics, which is the leftovers from after a body is burnt. Relics, stupas, Bodhi trees, and Dhammachakas, which is the 12-spoke wheel that represents Buddhism.
Oh, wow.
So these 4 things were things that he said could be venerated.
Okay. So when a temple says that this is a Buddha relic, it might not necessarily be that the people believe this is an actual piece of the Buddha's body.
Well, does it?
Or is it a gray area?
Does it matter? I mean, you treat it as if it is an actual piece of the Buddha's body. So if it is in your mind, is it in reality? In the Catholic Church, you have this
Transubstantiation.
Transubstantiation. This is the blood of body of Christ, and this is the body of Christ. I was at a Catholic ashram in India, and he would hold up, they'd do this with chapatis, and then they would hold up this chapati and say, this is the body of Christ. So, I mean, does it really matter? One of the things that is supposed to happen, and I've heard this story a number of times in a number of different places, that people will put out a jar at night, do a whole bunch of recitations over it and meditations over it, and during the night they'll hear a tinkling, and then they'll leap up and the jar will be full of these relics. So a lot of stories about these relics manifesting. Now, let's just assume that that's true. People do tell these stories and do believe them, but let's suppose that it actually is true. my argument about that is, how do you know it's something good? It may be an evil demon that's putting something bad into the jar.
Right.
Just because it manifests doesn't mean that it's a good thing.
Like a demonic tooth fairy or something like that.
But this is what happens. So the relics are coming from this manifestation, that you make a resolution that you want to have these relics, and then they come. The other thing is that they can be multiplied. So there's no real reason why you can't have an original and then it multiplies up.
Okay, a bit of an odd concept, but I guess that's no odder than having 10,000 teeth scattered around the world.
Exactly. Why not?
So I guess basically what it is it reminds me sort of like of the theory of currency. I mean, a piece of gold is only valuable because everyone agrees it's valuable. And if you have a relic there that everyone agrees adds a level of prestige or a focal point for meditation or concentration, then who really cares if it's real or not?
Gold technically would have a value. Paper money, for example, is worthless, except for what people believe in it. Yeah, and also when you build a stupa or you install a Buddha statue, then usually you would put a Buddha relic in it to give it a kind of essence, if you like, to make it official.
Right.
So
okay.
It's not just whether the thing is actually truly original or not, but it's a ceremonial marking of a building or a Buddha statue that makes it now an official, proper Buddha image. There was an interesting story about the Buddha images. The Buddha didn't allow images of himself to be made. And the first Buddha images that were made actually came from the Greeks. So you see a lot of similarities between the very early Indian Buddha images and Greek statues.
Oh.
All with the big noses and the flowing toga robes and this kind of thing.
I didn't know that. That's interesting.
But the story goes that the Buddha had gone up to teach Abhidhamma, the philosophy, to his mother in a heavenly realm. And while he'd gone up, the monks had fashioned a image of the Buddha made out of wood and had put it on the Buddha's seat. At some point while the Buddha is up in the heavenly realm, he comes down to check on the monks and he sees this wooden image on his seat. But of course the universe can't possibly allow an inanimate object to occupy the seat of a fully enlightened Buddha. So what happened was this wooden Buddha image got up off the seat and went to sit down on the floor. And the Buddha said to it, no, you can stay there. I'm going back up to a heavenly realm to carry on teaching with my mother. So this is the original story for how Buddha images came to be. Remember, stories are immensely powerful and we understand things through story.
Sure.
The story doesn't have to be real. The story doesn't have to be historically true. Stories frame our way of understanding things. So this was the story that was told for how come we started to get Buddha statues.
So after that, then it became okay to make Buddha statues.
Yes, yeah.
Really?
Although probably the statues came first and the story came later.
Yeah. Something tells me that's the way it happened.
Yeah. So when they put a Buddha image into a hall, for example, they will often put relics into the Buddha image, which kind of make it special or holy. Means you can have a ceremonial marking of something. Okay. I mean, think about getting married, which some people still do these days. And what do? You have a ceremony and you put a ring on the finger. Does the ring have a magic power? Does it change you in some way? Or is it actually just a very significant and very effective marker for a point in time when you said publicly in front of a lot of people that you're dedicating your life to someone? It doesn't have to make a magical property in the ring.
Fair enough.
It's something that you mark an occasion with.
You remember that comedian Mitch Hedberg? One of his famous jokes is, I don't have a girlfriend, but I know a girl that'd be really angry if she heard me say that. Well, while we're talking about the consecration and relics around buildings, I'm not sure if you can shed any light on this for me, but years ago when I was working at a previous job, we went down to the blessing of a new warehouse that was being built. And there was nothing. It was just a piece of dirt. But they had a ceremony where they dug a hole and threw some things down in there. And there was a container containing something. And there was some money and a few Buddhist relics, is the only word I can think of. Do you have any insight into what that would have been?
Not specifically, but it's what we call the groundbreaking in many cultures, there's always been like a particular moment where you mark the beginning of a new building. So
Right.
groundbreaking is very important. And yeah, you would bury or you would put kind of holy things down into the ground. This may or may not be done by monks, though. Very often it's done by Brahmins.
There was no monks there that I could see. It was just a bunch of guys in business suits, and the stuff was already in the hole.
Right, so it'd probably be Brahmins doing it. You can do it and invite monks, and you would give monks food as an auspicious omen to add to the act of breaking the ground. But the monks wouldn't necessarily be conferring any special kind of power or auspices on that particular hole. I should say that with the monks' buildings, there are a lot of rules about the dwellings that a monk can live in. Rules on exactly how it was built, exactly how the ground is broken.
Really?
And the hall that we're sitting in right now is called a Sema hall. And to be a monastery, you have to have a consecrated Sema hall. And there will be 8 spots around the hall and 1 spot inside the hall where you have specific things are buried. They're called luknimit, which are specific items that are buried around the hall with a lot of chanting and ceremony. And this then goes on to the register at the National Office of Buddhism as a consecrated hall. And it's where you can do ordinations. You're not allowed to do ordinations in other places, only in consecrated halls. So the big hall that you would find in a temple may actually just be a big hall. The consecrated hall may be actually something smaller and off to the side.
Interesting. Okay. Is there any way to know? Are there any visible markers that people can see?
Yeah, it's hard to show you on a podcast, but afterwards we'll walk around and I'll show you the 8 spots around the circumference of the hall.
And while we're talking about this kind of things, can you explain a little bit about germ? Is that the right word?
Germ.
This is when a monk takes clay or writes something on the roof of a car or the top of a building. I've seen them do it on airplanes, Thai Airways airplanes.
Oh, yeah.
When they bless the plane.
Yeah, that's worked. I haven't seen too many crashes from Thai Air.
Right. They're only 3 billion baht in the red this year, I think. How does that work, and what's the story behind that?
I'm not too sure. I don't get involved myself, but these are the symbols that they draw, which is from a kind of flour paste. And then you will come and you'll make merit by inviting the monks, having the monks chanting, offering food to the monks. And this is always to monks plural. So you're offering to the Sangha. And the idea is that you're supporting the growth, the furtherance, the protection of the teachings by supporting the Sangha. And then one of the monks will go around and he will draw the symbols around on certain points of the building or the car. And this is usually a Khmer symbol. So it's a kind of Khmer superstition, if you like, that they draw these symbols, especially over the doorways, because that's where good or bad things will come in.
Okay.
So you would draw this thing and then see how long it stays up there. You can redo it every so often if you want, invite the monks again. But again, it's kind of a nice way to mark an occasion. If you've got a new car and it's come from a factory and it belongs to Honda or Toyota and you want to make it belong to you and you take it to a temple and you have the monks bless it, a bit of holy water and a couple of little symbols, you've now made that car your own and given it an identity as your car. And that's a real thing. That's not it's an abstract thing, but it's a real thing. It's a real sense of connection and ownership with the car. So from my point of view, I think it's perfectly fine. People do this.
Some people put rims on their cars. Some people put clay paste on the roof.
The question is, do these things actually make the car safer to drive? So some of you may know I recently finished my master's degree and I was thinking of doing a PhD. And if I do my PhD, my title of the thesis is a statistical survey on the efficacy of Buddha amulets at preventing accidents for Bangkok taxi drivers. So I want to see, like, the taxi drivers, they put their amulets facing forward or facing back. Some hang them from the mirror, some put them on the dashboard. Some use the Buddha, some use famous monks. I want to do genuine research into exactly what do the drivers feel these amulets will add to their driving or to their car or to their luck. Do they treat it as a bit of sanuk? Is it just a way to mark the occasion? So I think this is an interesting topic.
That would get into some pretty interesting statistical interpretations. Of course, the most difficult part about that would be following up with crashed cars, what images they had.
The question will be, how many crashes have you had in the last 5 years, and to what severity? So I want to know what amulets they're using and how often they crash. And we can also correlate with other things like, do they drink a lot of Red Bull? How old are they? Which province do they come from? What kind of car are they driving? So,
well, let's talk about amulets a little bit, because I've got a couple of questions about that as well. Is there any central body that oversees amulet distribution, creation, authenticity, or is it just like, I can make an amulet? What's stopping me from making a Phra Pandit amulet and making you like the patron saint of the Bangkok Podcast?
But no, there isn't a central body. I'm sure the military would like to get involved in this, but you know how they like to regulate everything. Uh-huh. No, there isn't anything to stop people making an amulet. And in fact, people do. You can buy a little press, you buy the paste, you make a little engraving, and anybody can print up amulets. The question is, do people want those amulets? Like if you just print some up with, Greg on the face of it, how many people are going to want those for the time, effort, and expense it costs you to make them?
At least my mom would probably get a couple. But again, this goes back to the money thing. It's only valuable if people agree that it has value.
Well, you're in a temple here, Wat Phra Nam, which is extremely famous for its amulets.
Oh, really?
Very famous. And an original issue of Wat Phra Nam amulets, issue 1 or issue 2, will be worth more than a brand new Mercedes.
When were they made?
Yeah, they were made, I don't know, 70, 80 years ago or something like that. Every so often, the temple is convinced into making a new issue. I think we've had 9 issues in total.
Wow.
The last several issues, in fact, were made up country. The abbot here doesn't particularly like them being manufactured here. Also, when they are made here, they're given away. So it's not a way to make money. People assume just because amulets are traded on the open market for large sums of money doesn't mean that the temple is selling them for that much money. All the amulets that were made in this temple actually were given away. You can buy like little metal things, little amulets, or even souvenirs, you could call them, for like a couple of dollars. But yeah, people would go crazy for it. It was a few years ago, maybe 10 years ago, I think we had issue 6 or 7, and the temple was just packed for miles and miles around, people clamoring to get in, to get their hands on this new issue of amulets from our temple. So anyone can make them, but the question is, do people want them? So if you have a famous monk or a famous temple, or people think you have psychic powers, then people are going to come and try and get your amulet. This was the whole story with Lumpur Kun a few years ago. Remember the old monk whose amulets were very popular?
Yeah, was he the... And I wanted to ask a question about if people in the past have gamed the system or scammed the system in some way. I'm not sure if this was the same guy, but I remember someone famous sort of rigging something so that he made a ton of money from...
That would be Jatu Kam, I think. Okay. Those big Jatu Kam amulets. Yeah, this is Thailand. Somebody's going to make piles of money from it somewhere. The thing with Lumpur Kun was he was just a very ordinary, simple monk. And somebody had made some small amulets of him. And I think there was a coach crash or something like that, and the only person that survived was wearing one of his amulets. And so suddenly he skyrocketed to fame. And he himself never made an amulet in his life. He wouldn't know how. And he didn't sell these things or profit from them, but he skyrocketed to fame. And you may, if you see him, you may see the pictures of him squatting down on his haunches, often smoking a big cigar. Anyway, after this whole thing happened with the amulets, other people would make amulets of him, and they might well be profiting from it. Also, millions of people would go to the monk himself and give him money. And he was just a very simple, ordinary forest monk. So as far as I know, he just channeled all the money into a royal foundation.
Interesting.
He did feel that because of all the spotlight that had been put on him due to this craze of amulets, he felt that he should try and be a better role model to the populace. And so he was about 70 or something, but he quit smoking because he saw these pictures of him sitting there with a big field tobacco cigar. So he said, you know what, if they're going to make amulets of me, I don't want them to have a cigar in my hand. So he quit smoking at an old
good
age.
on him.
Yeah.
That's pretty noble.
So that's a good example. Other people may be profiting, but from the original kind of monk himself, I mean, he had no interest in that.
You mentioned the Jatukam amulet. And for those that don't know, this was a really interesting phenomenon, I guess about 10 years ago now, 10 or 12. And it was a mania. And for some reason, it got around that this particular amulet would bring wealth.
Yeah.
And it was a pretty big one. It was about the size of...
Huge. It's a big cookie.
It was like an Olympic medal kind of thing almost. And within several weeks, you could see these around the necks of a huge percentage of people walking around Bangkok. Everyone from homeless people pushing carts of junk to people in Mercedes had them mounted on their dashboards. What kicked that off, and why was that so special?
I can't remember. It was some temple down south that were making these fairly ordinary but huge amulets, and suddenly they took off. The only story that I remember connected with this was, I think the temple is called Wat Suan Gao, and is Phra Pandit is a very famous monk for being a comedic monk in Bangkok. And he really doesn't like this kind of thing at all. So he actually made Jatukam cookies. And so people could come and spend their money. At least, he said, well, at least you can eat my amulets. So, yeah, I can't remember, but these things go off in crazes, and then they get, ripped off, and people manufacture them everywhere, and then the thing passes. I should say, outside every temple, and also in several areas around Bangkok, primarily around Ta Prajan, the boat stand, right, by the hospital.
Yeah.
And also by Watsaked, there are amulet markets. And here you will find people whose entire trade is amulets. And they will have these little magnifying glasses, and they will inspect the amulets. They know the genuine ones from the non-genuine ones. They know where they come from, what temple they come from. They know how much they're worth. And interestingly, if you look at the signs outside in Thai, they don't say amulets for sale, they say amulets for rent. Because you're not supposed to buy and sell Buddha amulets, but you can rent them.
Interesting loophole.
Yeah. So you do have a whole profession. I mean, there's newspapers, if you look, many have pages upon pages of pictures of amulets.
There's magazines. Yeah. They're like People or Us magazine, except instead of Hollywood stars on the cover, they have a particular amulet.
And also I saw in Penang, there were amulet shops selling amulets that here cost you 20 baht, and they're going for like $200 in Penang. Yeah. Somebody's making a lot of money shipping these things down to Malaysia and Singapore. Yeah.
Little gears in my head start working. Well, as we're wrapping up here, I think I don't know how I'm going to put this so I sound intelligent, but it seems to me that the theme of this show is belief, faith.
Yeah.
It's very subjective. It's a very individual thing. And whether one person believes this or not, or this way or that way, it really comes down to what the end result is. If it makes you a better person, if it results in a better deed.
I would say symbols. I myself have a little amulet. I really like it. I don't have it on all the time, but it's a symbol of my faith. And in that sense, it's perfect. It's just as real as your wedding ring is to you. Religion and meditation and enlightenment, these are abstract concepts.
Right.
And human beings, in order to relate to abstract concepts, we need to have physical symbols. And that's where your wedding ring comes from. That's why a Mercedes has a Mercedes emblem on the front of the car. We work through symbols.
Interesting. And now you work through podcasts, spreading the good word. Well, sir, thank you.
Symbol of Bangkok Podcast.
That's right. That's right. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show again. It's great to sit down and talk to you, especially in such a unique setting. Again, listeners, head to the website and check out a photo of our vantage point here. It's pretty interesting. So thank you again. And
you're welcome.
We will talk to you soon.
I got to say this, man. You're lucky you met Phra Pandit, because like without him, it's like we'd really have to struggle to get answers about Thai Buddhism. It's like he's the perfect resource.
Yeah.
Because he's a Westerner and his English is perfect, and he's not like some guy who came here for like a year and took a class in Buddhism. He's like a real monk,
Yeah, and he's cool because you ask him a question and he's like, well, in the 3rd chapter of this book. So he really knows his stuff. He's read all the material. He studied it. He obviously meditates it all the time. So, it's not like he gives you a light answer. He always gives you a heavy dose of information, which is exactly what we're looking for. So, it's always
he's a
fun.
Great resource.
Yeah, a really cool guy. And I got to say, too, when you sit down with him, you never know whether you're going to end up talking about psychology or nuclear power or, climate change or, dinosaur science. Who knows? The guy just reads a lot of books. All right, well, let's get into some love, loathe, or live with. That's where one of us surprises the other with a particular aspect of living in Bangkok, which we then discuss and decide if it's something we love about living here, loathe about living here, or have come to accept that is just a part of the crazy tapestry of Bangkok. And this week, it's my turn. So, Ed, this is the same topic, but a 2-part thing, 2 levels to this love, loathe, or live with. How do you feel when you're sitting at home and you hear this sound? So that's the first part. And then you walk into your kitchen and you see one of these geckos run under your fridge or behind a drawer or something like that. What's your reaction?
This is such a great Thai question because it's something that I just don't remember in the States. Like, obviously in the States, we've got ants, we've got cockroaches, and of course we must have geckos, but I just don't remember them like running around the inside of the house.
No, definitely not in Canada.
Yeah, I just don't remember. And so it was something I had to get used to when I moved here. Like, occasionally I've seen cockroaches here in Thailand, but you see geckos, like small little lizards, like way more often,
Yeah.
And, but I got to be honest, they don't really bother me much. And I think I read somewhere that it makes sense that they probably eat bugs. I think they eat mosquitoes or other bugs or whatever they're doing.
Right. Yeah.
And I got to say, I can't say I love them, but they definitely don't bother me. The only time they've bothered me is when, like, this would be, I think, an easy love, loathe, or live with, is when the gecko's like crawling across the ceiling and you notice it, and then as it's crawling over you, it falls directly on you. I think in the 18 years I've been here, or almost 19 years I've been here, I think that's happened like twice, where like I'm lying in bed and I see a gecko like crawling across the ceiling, and I'm like, okay, whatever. Like I said, they don't really bother me, but then it perilously crawls over me, which they do all the time, and then utterly randomly it just falls right on me. That's happened twice.
Would be
that's a loathe.
Oh yeah, that would be a little bit weird, I guess. And of course, we should mention, for those that don't know, we're talking about the gecko, the jingjok, they're called, and they're probably, I mean, if you spread out your thumb and forefinger, they're probably that long, including the tail, a big one anyway.
Maybe 3 inches. Yeah, they're small. They're small little lizards, and they're basically all over the place.
All over the place, but they're harmless. You know what? I love them. I think they're cute. And I try to catch them whenever I can. I put my hand on them and I pick them up, and you hold them in your finger, and then I just like to like put my thumb underneath their jaw and pretend like I'm giving them like scritches, like a cat or something. But
that's kind of weird.
It's not weird. They're cute. But I know people that are terrified of these things. Like
yeah, it's weird. Some Thai people really don't like them, which is weird because they're so common. But some Thai people really don't like them.
Yeah. I love them. I think they're I like that sound. I think it's neat. It reminds me that I'm living in the tropics. I think they're cute. So I love them. But I tell you what, the one thing I don't like about them is how they take a crap. And that's usually when they're walking on a wall or something and they just sort of crap and it sticks to the wall. So sometimes you walk into your kitchen or something and you see like little pieces of poo stuck all over the wall.
Yes, that's
gross.
Yeah. Gecko shit, that's a loathe. That's a loathe.
And also, last thing, interesting bit of trivia. If you get a laser pointer, a red laser pointer, and point it at a wall outside in the evening, they will chase it. And you can like make them run all over the place following this laser dot.
Wow, that's very cool. I didn't know that. I'm going to try that.
Yeah. But check it out. Only with red lasers. If you use a green laser, they can't see it.
Okay, I'm just going to call bullshit on that.
No, dude, I've done it. I've had green lasers and red lasers.
Have you actually done it? You had a green laser and a red laser?
Well, not at the same time, but I've had both of them. And you put a green laser right in front of his face, like right in front of his nose, and no reaction. I guess it must be the way their eyes see. They can see the red wavelengths, but not the green wavelengths. Try it, and if you can get one to run with a green one, more power to you. But I've never been able to.
Okay, this is I have no knowledge of this, so I'm gonna accept you because I trust you, but part of me is calling bullshit. But
no, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna go down to MBK and I'm gonna buy a green laser and a red laser, and I'm gonna make a special video for our listeners. Right. I'm gonna put it on our YouTube channel, and everyone will be able to see it.
I'll believe it when I see it.
All right, cool.
Okay. Before we wrap up, I'd like to give a special thanks to all of our lovely patrons. As you know, we don't run ads or have sponsors, so we really, really do appreciate the support we get from our patrons. If you want to learn more, just head to bangkokpodcast.com/support. And if you want to get in touch with us, it's easy. Bangkok Podcast on social media, bangkokpodcast.com on the web, or simply bangkokpodcast@gmail.com. We are very polite, and if you write, we will answer.
True that. You can also find each episode on YouTube, and you can also follow us on the Line Chat app where we post each episode and carry on conversations with our listeners. That is you. You can also reach out to me directly on Twitter, where I am BKK Greg. So thank you for listening, everyone, and we'll see you back here next week. All right. Well, before we start, I want to read out a message that. Let me start that again.